Hello and welcome to the part 6 of my 2024 F1 season simulation. If you missed part 5, make sure to check that video before watching this one. Let's get right into it. So, for the round 6 of the 2024 season, we have the Miami Grand Prix, which is the second sprint race of the season and the simulation as well. In terms of weather, it looks like completely dry for the entire weekend, so there's that. And yeah, let's get into the upgrades themselves. For the big upgrades, all packages only Williams and Haas bring those. Rest of the teams only like small upgrades or none. So yeah, when it comes to the size of the upgrades or the effect of those, Williams has the biggest number of upgrades, obviously, but they upgrades may just bring no pace to the car whatsoever. You never know. I set it up so the upgrades cannot make the car slower, but they also have a chance to not have any effect whatsoever. So take these with a grain of salt. They're just like a bit of additional information for you. When it comes to sprint shootout, as we get into that, as this is the second sprint weekend, SQ1 begins with Perez stopping the session after a very weird session throughout. Albon crashing out, bringing out a red flag. A lot of drivers couldn't set an actual representative lap time, so we see things like Norris below Bottas or Perez 3 tenths ahead of Max Verstappen. Just those things that you would expect normally. So yeah, when it comes to the final sprint shootout classification for SQ1, it stayed the same. So the Perez stops the session with Russell P2, Leclerc P3, Tsunoda P4, Alonso P5, Max P6, Piastri P7, Stroll P8, Ocon P9, and Sainz P10. P11 for Hamilton, P12 Gasly, P13 Bottas, P14 Norris, and P15 Ricciardo. Knocked out in SQ1 are Guan Yu Zhou, Nico Hulkenberg, Logan Sargent, Kevin Magnussen, and Alex Albon. So, getting into SQ2, Lando Norris tops the session with another not too representative session in terms of lap times, as we had 2 red flags this time. One where both the Astons crash at the same time, not with each other. They crashed on the different parts of the track, but both crashed relatively on this at the same time, bringing on a red flag. And later in the session, Piastri crashed as well, bringing out another red flag. So these times are also not very representative, but interesting to say the least. We have Norris P1, Sainz P2, Leclerc P3, Verstappen P4, Russell P5, Hamilton P6, Ricciardo P7, Perez P8, Tsunoda P9, and Ocon P10. Knocked out in SQ2 are Piastri, Bottas, Gasly, and the Aston Martins of Alonso and Stroll with no times each. Piastri wouldn't be able to compete in the next session if he would get through, but luckily that place is not taken away from Ocon, who gets into Q3. Very good for the Alpine driver. Let's get into SQ3. So the provisional pole position for the sprint is, this is the final sprint shootout classification. Basically, no changes, no deleted lap time. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. SQ3 on provisional sprint pole position is Carlos Sainz ahead of Checo Perez and ahead of Max Verstappen, all very close to each other. Lewis Hamilton in P4, Russell P5, Leclerc P6, P7 for Norris, P8 for Ocon, P9 for Tsunoda, and P10 for Ricciardo. As there are no deleted lap times in this one as well, we have Carlos Sainz starting in pole position for the sprint itself on Saturday, with Perez out-qualifying Max in the first time in a while. I would say this is not something that we are very used to. I think the last time was probably Miami last year that Perez out-qualified Max, thanks to Max not being able to set another lap time after Leclerc crashing out and bringing out a red flag. So this time we have an actual representative times, and Perez managed to out-qualify Max Verstappen for the first time since like in a year. So as impressive as it may seem for Perez to out-qualify Max, it's just not good numbers for him, as Max dumped on him the entire year. Hamilton qualifies Russell finally. Some good pace from Hamilton there. Leclerc quite a way off from Sainz, not that speed from Leclerc that we used to see. Norris only P7 could be a bit upset as topping the Q2 was very promising for McLaren. Unfortunately, only P7, 3 tenths off. Esteban Ocon with a very impressive P8 ahead of both Racing Bulls. Only 3 tenths off sprint pole, so very impressive for from the Alpine driver. And we have Tsunoda ahead of Ricciardo for the last 2 places in SQ3. So this is the starting grid for the sprint in Miami. Carlos Sainz sits on the sprint pole position with Perez alongside in P2, following our Max Verstappen in P3, Hamilton P4, Russell P5, Leclerc P6, Norris P7, Ocon P8, Tsunoda P9, and Daniel Ricciardo starting in P10. Piastri P11, Bottas P12, Gasly P13, Alonso P14, and Stroll in P15. Zhou P16, Nico Hülkenberg in P17, Logan Sargent in P18, Kevin Magnussen in P19, and Albon starting in P20 after that crash in SQ1. So, what will the sprint bring us today? As we can see, it's Max Verstappen winning another sprint race in this whatever era from 2020 to 2025. I don't know how to call this era. We call it the era before the turbo hybrid era, but I don't know how to call this one. Maybe good racing ruined by directives, which meant the cars that are meant to be good at racing are not good at racing anymore. So I guess that's this era call. Anyways, Max Verstappen wins the sprint race from P3 on the grid, followed by Checo Perez in P2. So Red Bull 1-2 in the sprint. Followed by Russell in P3, so sprint podium technically for George Russell. Leclerc finishes P4, Hamilton P5, Sainz P6, dropping from sprint pole position all the way down to P6. Not that good from Carlos Sainz. P7 for Norris stays where he qualified, and Esteban Ocon gets the 1 point from this sprint race as he managed to keep his very good spot. Alonso climbs to all the way up to P9, but unfortunately no points, just as the points for the sprint. Ricciardo and Tsunoda very close to each other again, just as the points behind Alonso. Piastri P12 actually dropped a position in the sprint, not that impressive from the Australian. Gasly P13, quite a way off its teammate. Bottas P14, Hülkenberg P15, Zhou P16, Albon P17, Sargent P18, and Magnussen is the last finisher, as we have Stroll DNFing from a crash he caused by himself. Not that kind of crash you expect, like just smashing into a wall. This one was more on Stroll, just damaging his car and not causing an actual red flag. So here we have Stroll DNFing all on his own, no red flags caused, so no shuffles in the order itself. So these are the sprint results. Getting into the qualifying in Saturday following the sprint, here we have Q1 with Max Verstappen topping the session ahead of Lewis Hamilton and the 2 McLarens of Norris and Piastri. Russell P5, Perez P6, Stroll P7, Alonso P8, Tsunoda P9, Sainz P10, Leclerc P11, Ricciardo P12, Gasly P13, Albon P14, Esteban Ocon in P15. Provisionally knocked out in Q1 are Guanyu Zhou, 2 hasses of Hülkenberg and Magnussen, Sargent, and Bottas with no time set, as this was another incident of Bottas damaging his car and unfortunately couldn't set a hot lap. So unfortunately for the Sauber driver, we didn't see them anywhere near Zhou because of the no time. Getting to the final classification, we have only one change. That's deleted lap time for Logan Sargent, and that means Sargent stays in P19 as he was P19 even before the lap time. Quickly checking in. Yep, that's the truth. So These are knocked out in Q1. Joe, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Sargent, and Bottas in that order. Then into Q2, we have Max Verstappen topping another session ahead of George Russell in P2, Piastri P3, Hamilton P4, Leclerc P5, Norris P6, Tsunoda P7, Gasly with a great P8, Stroll P9, and Carlos Sainz a P10. This was a very strange moment with Alonso being knocked out in Q2 by their teammate by just under 1/10 of a second, so still very close margins, but impressive by Stroll nonetheless after crashing out of the sprint and in sprint shootout as well. Really needed that good performance. Ocon on P12, this time outperforming Gasly in qualifying. Gasly putting in the good lap time to get into Q3. Perez P13, only P13 over 7.5 of a second off Max Verstappen. That's just very, very bad performance from Checo Perez, especially after that solid sprint. Alex Albon starting in P14 provisionally, and Ricciardo in P15. Quite a way off Tsunoda as well. This session, I believe, had no interruptions. In the end, no deleted lap times either, so knocked out in Q2 are Alonso, Ocon, Perez, Albon, and Daniel Ricciardo. Getting to Q3, we have George Russell in provisional pole position ahead of two McLarens of Norris and Piastri. Verstappen in P4, Hamilton in P5, Tsunoda in P6, Sainz in P7, Leclerc in P8, Gasly P9, and Lance Stroll in P10 with no time set as he managed to crash again. This time bringing out a red flag which interrupted the session and interrupted a lot of drivers, namely Hamilton, I think Sainz, and Gasly, so those other drivers mainly interrupted by the red flag. When it comes to the provisional pole position, it's for George Russell, so I believe that's his second or third pole position in his career. That would be if obviously no deleted lap times. Getting into that, no deleted lap times, so George Russell takes pole position for the Miami Grand Prix ahead of two McLarens. Norris P2 and Piastri P3. Norris finally showing some great pace into the McLaren ahead of his teammate much higher up in the World Drivers' Championship. Max Verstappen only P4 after topping Q1 and Q2. I'm pretty sure he would be very upset with that, but P4 grid spot is still very good since he won the sprint from P3 on the grid. Hamilton only P5 and over 0.4 of a second behind Russell. Yeah, I kind of jinxed it with good Lewis pace. Yeah, this seems like Russell put up some insane lap to get that much far ahead of Lewis there. Tsunoda in P6, another great qualifying from the Japanese driver. Out of the two Ferraris, Carlos Sainz ahead of Leclerc. I mentioned earlier that those two are very unlucky with the red flag, as Ferrari are generally bad with their timing and got screwed up by the red flag. Pierre Gasly pin P9 ahead of Stroll with no time set. So these are the results of Q3. When we go to the starting grid for the Miami Grand Prix, we have George Russell starting in pole position with sharing the front row with Norris in P2. And we have Piastri in P3, Max Verstappen in P4, Hamilton P5, Tsunoda P6, Sainz P7, Leclerc P8, Gasly P9, and Lance Stroll in P10. And we have Alonso in P11, Ocon P12, Perez in P13, Albon in P14, and Ricciardo in P15. Joe P16, Hulkenberg P17, Magnussen P18, Sargent P19, and Bottas starting dead last. So, what will the race bring us today? As we have George Russell winning the Miami Grand Prix ahead of Lando Norris and Max Verstappen finishing on the podium in P3 with the fastest lap. And we have Lewis Hamilton in P4, Leclerc in P5, Tsunoda maintaining his P6 on the grid into another good amount of points. Piastri P7 dropping out 4 places, not that impressive. Alonso P8, Perez P9, and Gasly P10. Ricciardo P11, Stroll P12, Ocon P13, Albon P14, Joe P15, Hulkenberg P16, Sargent P17, Magnussen P18, Bottas P19, and Sainz with the DNF which was caused by a red flag with basically Sainz and Alonso. Actually, this wasn't a red flag. Sorry, I sort of ignored my incompetence with remembering things. There were no red flags and no interruptions in the race, but we had 3 driver errors. 2 of them were Alonso and Sainz, who had contact after tight battle. Unfortunately, Sainz's car was too broken to continue, and DNF. Alonso unfortunately had almost up to half a second nerf to his pace thanks to the damage. And Sargent also had a driver error which caused his car to slow down as well. But this time this wasn't as harsh as Alonso's damage. Generally, the Grand Prix, pretty different teams on the podium again. Very exciting things. Max Verstappen taking the fastest lap, Russell winning from pole position. Norris finally getting onto the podium and quite a way ahead of his teammate. Hamilton only P4, considering his teammate won. Could be better, but still very decent result. Leclerc getting 3 positions to P5, take 10 points for his team, considering Sainz DNF. That's a bit of a damage limitation. Tsunoda, as mentioned earlier, very, very impressive. P6 again, 8 points on the board. P7 only for Oscar Piastri after starting P3. I'm pretty sure he will be upset with that. Alonso P8 may have 3 positions, but couldn't really get anywhere higher due to the damage he got. Perez P9. I mean, 4 positions gained. It's not bad, but still very, very underwhelming considering Max Verstappen got P3. Yeah, you know, Max Verstappen used to winning from any grid spot, and now he's P3. So I guess Perez P9 is not that upsetting, but still, it's still underwhelming to say the least. Gasly P10 getting points on the board for Alpine, so this means both Alpines scored points this weekend. I think this is for the first time in the season. Ricciardo P11, just outside the points once again. He got 4 positions, but couldn't quite manage to get points. Stroll P12, dropping from P10 on the grid. Outside the points, Ocon P13, Albon stayed P14, Zhou made 1 position to P15, Hulkenberg 1 position to P16, Sargent made up 2 places to P17. Magnussen stayed the same, and Bottas only get 1 place thanks to Sainz DNF. So yeah, these are the race results for the Miami Grand Prix. As we look at the World Drivers' Championship after round 6, the Miami Grand Prix, we have Max Verstappen leading championship on 111 points with 2 wins on his name, 4 podiums, 3 pole positions, and 3 fastest laps. As we have Russell in P2 now with 93 points, a victory, 4 podiums. Very impressive for Russell to have this big of a redemption after last season. Charles Leclerc in P3 right now. I'm pretty sure he was P3 before because of the change I forgot to do. Essentially staying the same in P3 with 77 points. Very good considering where his teammate is. With a victory for Leclerc and 2 podiums and 3 fastest laps so far. P4 only for Alonso, dropping 2 places now with 2 podiums and 1 pole position on his name. Carrying Aston Martin in points and in Constructors' Championship overall. Piastri P5, maintaining his place with 67 points, 1 victory to his name, 2 podiums and 1 pole position. Hamilton in P6 with 53 points with a podium, finally, from this wait, he was podium last time, never mind. Norris with finally his first podium of this season with 49 points in P7, making up 2 places. Tsunoda unfortunately dropping to P8 even after that great P6 result in the Grand Prix. Perez climbs us to P9, but still, yeah, that's the gap between Max and Checo is just enormous at this point. Sainz P10, the same thing, a very, very big margin towards Leclerc. Sainz really needs to gain some points so they can fight for the Constructors' Championship here. But still, Sainz with the victory and podium and pole position. The pace is there, it just needs to be more consistent. P11 for Alban, still at 18 points and 1 podium from Saudi Arabia. Ocon with 11, Stroll with 8, as well as Ricardo with 8, Gasly with 5, Hulkenberg with 2, and Sargent with 2. We have Joe, Magnus, and Bottas without any points whatsoever so far after round 6, as we had to do a World Constructors Championship. We have actually Mercedes leading the way in the Constructors with 146 points, a victory, 5 podiums, and yeah, that's about it. They have the most podiums, they are the most consistent driver pairing right now, even with Lewis not really performing as well as Russell. They're still leading the Constructors. Red Bull in P2, thanks to Max Verstappen just being incredible once again, with 2 victories, 4 podiums, 3 pole positions, and 3 fastest laps. McLaren climb up to P3 with 116 points, 1 victory, 3 podiums, 1 pole position. Ferrari dropping 1 spot to P4 with 109 points, 2 wins, 3 podiums, 1 pole, and 3 fastest laps. P5 for Aston Martin, quite way behind, with behind the top 4 teams technically. You can kind of see the minor fights happening in here. We have Mercedes and Red Bull up in the front, then behind the small group of McLaren and Ferrari, then quite a big margin to Aston Martin, and another big margin to Racing Bulls, and another big margin to Williams and all the back markers behind them. Yeah, no changes anywhere else in terms of order. Some teams getting points like Alpine and Racing Bulls, but not enough to overtake any of their rivals in the Constructors Championship. So yeah, these are the standings after round 6. Very exciting to do. Upcoming round 7, which is the Imola Grand Prix, or Emilia Romagna, Von Ferrari, whatever. Just the insanely long name that I never remember. Basically, Imola is next up, which is not a sprint race, this is a regular one. And yeah, it's coming out tomorrow, as I'm pretty sure I will record it today as well. So yeah, this is Imola for next time. Hopefully some exciting race. And as we get to the end of the video, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and like the video and comment whatever you liked about the video and whatever you want to see next on my channel, as I'll continue with F1 content furthermore. So yeah, thanks for watching and see you next time. See ya.